Fallen Saber has returned as the weekly featured Grandmaster, and the loaded question is this week's reward. This is one of the most sought after weapons this season, as it is a former pinnacle weapon that has returned in the form of an Adept. And lucky for us, this GM is highly farmable, so today we'll be showcasing how you and your fire team can easily farm this Grandmaster in 15 minutes or less. I'm Above, and if you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Now, let's get into it. Starting with my recommended team comp, we went with one Thundercrash Titan rocking Heart of Inmost Light, a Well of Radiance Warlock using the Surfboard Helmet, and a Threadrunner Hunter rocking pretty much any exotic of your choosing. Heart of Inmost Light dominated this Grandmaster in previous seasons, and has essentially returned to its pre-nerf form with this season's artifact mods. Well is always nice for survivability in key choke points, and its damage buff will help us with the boss bake. Strand is just insane, so feel free to swap Threadrunner for any Strand subclass of your choosing that better fits your playstyle. As for weapon loadouts, we went with one Wishender, one Galahorn, and a Divinity. Wishender is fantastic for neutralizing barriers, while Galahorn empowers our team's rocket damage. Our Warlock used Divinity to quickly stun Overload champions and constantly feed our team heavy ammo. Even though Cenotaph states that your Trace Rifle and subclass need to match in order to reap the exotic's benefits, this isn't actually the case. We used Well of Radiance with Divinity and had more heavy ammo than we knew what to do with. Tag a champ with Div, and when the champion dies, heavy ammo appears thanks to the Cenotaph's exotic perk. This allows you to spam rockets for ad clear and instantly top up on ammo, which significantly speeds up your runs. We paired these exotics with two Waveframe grenade launchers, two legendary rockets, an anti-barrier auto, and an Overload scout for backup should your Div user die. Key armor mods include Arc Resist and Concussive Dampener to counter the high volume of arc damage throughout this Nightfall. And since this GM is packed with ads in tight spaces, we'll be leaning on these seasonal artifact mods to make our arc subclasses shine here. I recommend Thunderous Retort to grant bonus super damage when amplified, Electric Armor for additional damage resist when amplified, and Amped Up to keep you amplified longer. We also took Countercharge to proc weapon surges every time we stun a champion, Shock and Awe which summons lightning strikes when getting kills while amplified, and lightning strikes twice, which increases your grenade regen when just throwing your grenade. And because of this, Arc absolutely annihilates this Grandmaster. As we dive into the Nightfall, we're kicking things off with the infamous Warsat encounter. Teams tend to struggle here, but it's actually quite easy once you know how to pace this fight. Ad spawns are tied to Warsat capture progression, so the more you brute force this progress, the faster ad spawns can overlap and potentially send you back to orbit. Start by scanning your ghost to begin capturing the zone, and your first indicator to step off the cap point will be when a skiff spawns out over the water. Its turrets are lethal, so you'll want to get rid of them as soon as possible. You can actually break the turrets to nullify the ship's threat altogether, and to do so, simply shoot the ship to expose the turret, then focus them as a fire team. Wishender does wonders against these ships, which is just another reason to have it in your arsenal. Once the turret has been broken, you can step back on the Warsat and clear ads as they spawn out of the ship. Our loadouts should take care of these no problem, and the next progress point is at 35%, and it's at this exact moment that you want to step off the Warsat to avoid an overlapping ad spawn at 38%. So step off, deal with the Overload champion, then step back on to progress the encounter. When the cap point reaches 38%, two skiffs will spawn in on your left-hand side. And just like we did with the first one, we want to shoot these ships to expose the turrets and destroy them as the skiffs are flying in. You can then step back on the Warsat and kill ads as they drop out of the ship. I recommend stepping off the cap point to deal with some of these enemies, but if you're comfortable, you can stay on to keep it progressing. A barrier champion will spawn in at 50% health, and a fourth and final skiff will spawn at 75%. This final skiff will also contain an Overload champion, so simply rinse and repeat this staggered progression technique that we've used throughout this fight, and you'll be through this encounter in no time. The first room of the Warmind bunker is easily one of the most hectic, but we've got a strat that makes this encounter pretty simple. Wait to enter the room as a fire team, then sprint to the hallway on the left-hand side. This breaks line of sight from the enemies in the main room and makes them funnel towards you one by one. You can either take your time clearing ads or be as aggressive as you want killing them from a well. Just be aware that when enemies die in the main room, new ones will spawn out of the doors at the end of the hallway behind you. With that said, as long as you're periodically checking for this, these are very easy to deal with. The main room will contain both a barrier and overload champion, and Strand deals with both of these rather easily. Just be aware that when the barrier dies, a second overload champion will spawn in. These champs will never push into the hallway that we're using for cover, which makes this part pretty easy. Just make sure that you're tagging these champs with divinity before killing them, which allows your team to spam rockets and still have tons of ammo on the ground afterwards. Once clear, we'll need to open the vent cover and destroy the fuse to progress the encounter. But before doing this, have your two teammates head back to the hallway from which we entered the bunker, while one person breaks the fuse from just inside the door. This allows you to spawn trap the next two overload champions with Strand, which can save you a ton of time. Simply stun them with div and dump rockets to kill them. You can then clear the rest of the ads from this hallway and exit through the vent on your right hand side. This next encounter isn't really an encounter, but can trip you up nonetheless if you don't know what you're doing. Start by clearing the hallway, then send one person forward to grab the arc charge, while your other two teammates stay back near the deposit to keep it safe for your runner. Wait for the electricity to pass, then pick up the orb and begin either sliding or jump canceling repeatedly to gain momentum. This ensures that you not only outspeed the electric currents behind you, but the ads that spawn around you as well. While this is happening, your teammates will clear the deposit, which should make this an easy dunk that will despawn the remaining enemies and the electric currents. The next room is extremely ad dense, but our team comp absolutely annihilates this encounter. Start by clearing the enemies near the doorway, then head inside and drop a well. Your suspend and arc grenades go crazy here and do a fantastic job controlling ad spawns near the top of the ramp. First up, you'll have an overload champion, and when it dies, a barrier champion will spawn in. When you take out the barrier, two more overload champions will spawn, but as long as you're chaining your arc and strand abilities together, you should be in and out of this room in no time. Next up, we have the pre-boss room, and it's absolutely loaded with champions, which is why I recommend clearing ads from this hallway before entering. Focus on the barrier first, then take out the snipers looming behind it. Once clear, you can push up and suspend the three overloads that appear near the exit. Strand groups these up nicely, so we can simply tag these with div to stun them and use rockets to take them out no problem. We can then pick up our heavy and be fully stocked up on ammo before the boss fight. All things considered, the boss room is pretty straightforward. Clear the shanks and void servitors to spawn the boss, then pop a well behind this bit of cover in the center of the room. Apply div and nuke the boss with rockets. You'll hit the health gate extremely quickly, at which point you can back up on the left hand side behind this cover that appears in front of you. It is at this point that a barrier will spawn in, so simply suspend it and whittle it down with primaries to save ammo for the next phase. When the barrier dies, the boss will become damageable once again. Nuke the boss with rockets once more, and keep your head on a swivel for both the sniper and explodey boy shanks that appear out of the vents in front of you. When the boss reaches half health, a second barrier will spawn, and when we kill it, the boss will become damageable one last time. Pop your well once more, bake the boss, and the Fallen Saber Grandmaster Nightfall is a GG. If you found this guide useful, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. You can also catch me live on Twitch over at twitch.tv/above, where I'll be streaming GM helps all season long. Anyways guys, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace!